This is Jessica and Sean from Two Married Geeks.
Yep.
And so today we're going to talk about Star Wars.
Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Yep. We saw it on opening night, and then we went again on Saturday. We took our daughter because I was like, Sean, I want to go see that again. Like now. I can't wait. So we went, and we enjoyed it both times. But we know there's some controversy about it. It's pretty.
Maybe this will be like in defense of Last Jedi or something like that. Because we both really liked it. So
yeah,
we're
but
gonna give our kind of take on it.
Yeah, but it's kind of like pretty divisive amongst fans. It's like they either hate it or love it. There's not very many people who are in the middle, but we are on the love it side. But yeah, so we've got some list of things that we're going to talk about, and maybe not get through all of it. I don't know. We'll just see. We've already been like talking about it, and I'm like, dude, we need to just film us talking about this. It happens all the time. We're always like, we should have filmed ourselves talking about that.
Why are we not video recording right now?
Yeah, I need somebody to just follow me around with a camera, but not like in the weird reality show sense, but just in a way that they can just capture all of the like good discussions that we have. Because some of the stuff's pretty good. But
where are we gonna start?
Let's start with numero uno. One of the big questions. Who is Rey? Oh, we should probably mention that this is not a spoiler-free video.
Yes.
We will be talking about spoilers, so if you've not seen the movie, don't keep watching. Pause. Go to the theater, watch the movie, and then come right back.
And watch the movie again, and then come back.
No, they can just watch it once, but just, make sure that you're seeing the movie. Or if you don't care about spoilers and you're just like, whatever, I just want to watch this movie or video that we're doing, then just fine. That's cool. That's fine. Anyways, so first question is, who's Rey? Well, we got our answer. Rey is just a nobody. But just in the sense that she's not related to anybody that we know. Right?
Yeah, and the precedence of coming from nowhere definitely exists in the movies. Like Anakin Skywalker came from nowhere.
Literally nowhere.
Just poof, magic.
And
space magic.
and technically Luke came from nowhere. Before we knew who his father was, he was also just a farm boy on a desert planet. Yeah. But like a lot of people keep thinking still, like saying, "Oh, Kylo Ren is just lying to her," because what happens is,
explain the lying part. I don't get the lying part.
So Kylo Ren says to Rey, that she's nothing, she's nobody. She knows already who her parents are, that she's just been lying to herself, basically. That she hasn't admitted it to herself. That her parents were just drunkards who traded her. Like, they weren't anybody. And a lot of people keep thinking, well, Kylo is lying to her, obviously, because he wants to get her to join him. But he doesn't actually say up front, like, who her parents are. He says, you already know it. You know what's true. And she does. Like, she says, yeah, they're nobody. And he confirms it.
And the whole point of the like Force vision darkness thing on the island was that all she saw was herself, which is, I think, a reflection of her parents don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's her choices and her own path.
Especially if we go back to the first movie, Maz tells Rey, like, your past doesn't matter. It's your future.
Right.
And so whenever people would ask, like, Daisy Ridley, who Rey's parents were, and, she was a Skywalker and all this stuff, she'd be like, I don't know why people are asking me this. It's answered in the first movie. And they've answered it again in the second movie. But there's still people who are saying, no, that can't be right. She has to be a Skywalker, But I think that the evidence just stacks against it. Like, there's no reason why Han and Leia would send a kid away again when they already regretted it with Ben. Like, why would they just do that? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like the broom kid or whatever, I think that's what people are calling it.
Yeah.
Broom kid is
At the
that whole point of the kid at the end of the movie being force sensitive and being able to
mm-hmm.
do that is in itself a nod to anybody can be sensitive to the force,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't belong to just the Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just that it doesn't belong to just the Jedi, because that is essentially what Luke is telling Rey when he starts teaching her, is that if you were to get rid of the Jedi, that doesn't remove the Force. The Force is still there. But I think that also means later on when Luke is telling Kylo that, if he kills him, that he's not going to be rid of the last Jedi. That there's still Rey, but there's not just Rey. There's also that kid in the end and other Force sensitives too. And the Force doesn't just go away. And
Oh, we were talking about like the mutant kind of thing this morning.
Oh yeah, like with mutants and X-Men and stuff.
They come out of nowhere because
Yeah.
it's like it's a genetic thing that like your powers or your strange mutant abilities don't come from your parents. They're just like mutations, and it's kind of along the same lines that anybody from any race, if you look into like the games or any of the lore about Star Wars, is that the force sensitive people come from all over the galaxy, and it doesn't.
Well, especially
You don't have to have force sensitive parents.
Well, especially because with the Jedi for 1,000 years, they came from not other Jedi. They came from other families. You didn't have the Jedi, procreating with each other. So now it's just they definitely weren't. It wasn't a bloodline thing. So yeah, like we're definitely team Kylo didn't lie, but I also think that Rey would have been able to tell if Kylo lied because they have the Force bond, the Force connection, or people are calling them Force Skyping or Force timing. I love Force timing the most. I think that's pretty awesome because it just kind of happens and stuff, and they didn't really understand what was going on. Kind of like my grandparents when we try to FaceTime with them. They're a little unsure of what's going on. Going forward to talk about Force bond or Force connection, that's something new that happened in this movie. There's a couple other new things, but this was a big one that just Kylo and Rey just all of a sudden have this connection that they're able to see and talk to each other through the Force. That's another reason why people think they're related, because they believe that you have to be related to somebody to be able to have that connection to them. But remember, the Force connects everybody. It connects everyone. It's all around us. So, well, I wish it was around us, but
isn't it? It's from the whole darkness rises and light to meet it. So she obviously is Kylo's equal, and so they have to have a connection to balance each other out. And themes of the Eastern Yin and Yang are definitely throughout the movie pretty clearly.
Yeah.
Because you have to have lightness and dark and equals and opposites in order to have life and the whole experience.
Well, there literally is yin and yang. With Rose and her sister, they both had yin and yang matching necklaces. And then there's there's also in the Jedi Temple, or the tree cave. That one was a cave. The Jedi cave. There's like a yin yang looking symbol on the floor, like a mosaic,
Well, it's not actually like a yin yang
No.
symbol, but it's some sort of a shape that has two sides of it. One that's more black, and then the other that is more white. But then there's black inside of the other white, and which in the yin yang symbol, there's darkness inside of the light side and light inside the dark.
Yeah.
Which you can see in the characters of Kylo and Rey, because there's definitely times where Rey seems to have some like dark side in her a little bit, and definitely there's redeeming parts about Kylo. And
well, it was like when Rey was having her first lesson, you know, she went and started going towards the darkness, and that really freaked Luke out. He was like, you went straight for the darkness. Like, holy crap, this is like flashbacks, you know, to my nephew and all this stuff. So he was kind of like afraid. I mean, he literally said, I'm afraid now.
Okay, keep going.
But she, and then she did go and confront the darkness. She went down like the cave that was representing like, you know, the dark side of the Force basically. But she resisted it. You know, she didn't find what she wanted. I think it kind of shows that she has sort of that balance. Like, she has that anger in her still.
I don't think that the dark side hole is actually the dark side. Because I think it's more of what you see in episode 7, where Luke has his own experience of going in the forest.
That's not
and
episode
everything.
7.
Or is it 5?
No. Yes. Episode 5.
I can't remember if
it's episode 5.
Okay. So there's a lot of things that episode 8 parallels with episode 5. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Luke has his own experience of kind of facing the dark side and having his own kind of Force vision, where he basically saw the same thing, where Luke saw himself reflected in Vader. Everybody would remember Luke's face inside of Darth Vader's mask.
Yeah. Which,
for him, was a reflection that obviously he was related to Darth Vader, and he knew that at the time. Or no, he didn't know that at the time. That was before he faced Vader. So it's a little strange to me that Luke would like be offended that Rey would want to go and have that same kind of like self-reflective experience. But
I don't know. But I think that it's more he's just thinking about the raw power that she has compared to what Kylo has. But I think one of the biggest themes that I've noticed with The Last Jedi and just really this new trilogy is that things aren't black and white anymore. It's not good versus bad, Jedi versus Sith, light versus the dark, because really the Jedi don't exist anymore and the Sith don't exist anymore at all. Right now it is really the light side versus the dark side. But we see with Kylo that, he is struggling. He is wrestling with himself. He has the good in him still. His father, Han Solo, saw it. And his mother saw it. And Rey saw it. At first Rey didn't notice it, but when they really, when they started to have those Force connections, she really kind of got to know him and really realized that, he's not what he really puts out on the outside. Like, he's totally different. And she realized that, he really is inside Ben Solo. He's who he's trying to forget and trying not to be, but that's who he is. And in a way, even though, she represents the light and he represents the darkness, I think that they both have that little bit inside them. She's got a little bit of the darkness in her. That's why the darkness called to her. But he also has the lightness in him.
Calling to him.
Yeah. And, they always say that, Anakin was supposed to be the one to bring balance to the Force, and that Luke helped, and we found that that's not really what happened. That's what this trilogy is, and you know, maybe that's what actually Rey and Kylo are the ones who are supposed to be the chosen ones.
Right. The whole like dual protagonist thing I thought was interesting. We like studied a whole bunch of stuff about the whole Reylo theory, and which definitely has a lot of interesting points to it. One thing that I remember is, or have come to understand, is that the Force, if you think about it, never really has been totally in balance. Because the prequels start out with the light side being in total control and having the Jedi Force being so overwhelming and stuff. But then it transitions over a period of those three films to the dark side having the overwhelming power.
Yeah.
And the dark side is winning everything, so the balance shifts to the dark side, which is not good either. So maybe in this set of these trilogies we're gonna see, I mean, we already have seen lots of themes of balance and the two things being the light and the dark being melded together and being something different entirely.
Yeah.
So.
Which comes to one of my things. I am a self-proclaimed shipper of Rey and Kylo, which is a lot of why I don't believe and hope that they're not related. Shipping, if you don't know, means that you want two people to get together, to be together romantically, and
I don't know why it's called ship, though.
I actually don't really know either.
I don't know. It's just a thing.
We'll have to figure that out. Yeah. But so the fan name is Reylo, and especially with The Last Jedi, you know, you can definitely tell there's that sexual tension between them. You know, you can kind of feel that electricity, especially in the scene where they are having one of their force connections, their force timing, and they're actually able to touch.
Force timing.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Kylo takes off his hand, or not his hand, takes off his glove.
His glove, yeah.
And they, you know, like Rey is the first one to reach out her hand, and then he takes his glove off and they touch. And then of course, you know, they get walked in on, like a parent walks on you know, a child making out with their boyfriend, and he, you know, flips out and blows up the hut. And and then, you know, later Rey goes to Kylo, and they end up, you know, fighting Snoke and killing Snoke, and then fighting against the Praetorian Guards. And it's, you know, pretty, you know, statically charged, and then he essentially like proposes to her. Like he says, let's, you know, forget everything, forget the past, the First Order, the Resistance, and let's rule together. And a lot of like friends and people I've been talking to we've talked about how that mirrors Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice. Like the relationship between Kylo and Rey really reminds me of Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. And Mr. Darcy proposes at one point, first time he proposes to Elizabeth, and he tells her, you know, despite your family basically, you know, trying to freeload and marry up and stuff and not being very good people, you know, I find myself drawn to you and I'd like to marry you.
Which he thinks is a good proposal at the time.
Yeah, he thinks it's a good proposal. And Kylo, you know, basically is saying, like, to Rey, like, well, you're nobody. Nobody, you know, wants you. You're not anybody to anybody, but you are to me. So come with me, please. And
But he keeps his glove on.
Yeah, he does keep his glove on. And
so it's as if Kylo is doing the proposal instead of Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's one reason why she probably didn't want to go with it.
She doesn't want Kylo. She wants Ben. She calls him Ben, which doesn't make him flip out, which you'd think would make him like be super angry whenever she calls him Ben,
Right.
but she doesn't, like, or he doesn't
I think
freak out.
one interesting thing about the Kylo and Rey going to face Snoke is it's got a lot of different elements kind of blended together from especially 5 and 6, because in 5 you see the confrontation and Vader doing the proposal of ruling the galaxy together,
That too.
and there's the element of Rey having faith in Kylo, which is the same thing as Luke having faith in Vader,
Yeah.
and saying to him in an elevator as well that he was going to turn and everything. And so I think they probably worked through those tropes and those kind of mirrors in one movie so that we can get kind of past that and into some a lot more interesting territory in 9.
Yeah.
And as well as killing Snoke, which is an element from 6, because the Emperor Palpatine was obviously killed at the end of 6. So where we're going for 9 is somewhere we haven't ever been before.
Yeah, well, especially with this movie was still even very different than everything else, like all the other movies. I have a very big critique of The Force Awakens was, people said it was just basically, a New Hope redone. New character names, but same plot, same story.
It pretty much is.
Yeah. But I feel like, that was really just a setup for The Last Jedi, and then the next episode 9 when that comes out in 2 years. But I think that people
Well, you can look at the set of the prequels that we're going through now also as like acts of a movie. I was thinking about this earlier, in that in the first act of a movie or any kind of good story or a 3-act play, the first act is setting up all of the characters and setting up the situation and the bad guy, and the second act is usually where everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
Where the bad guy starts to win or things go just terribly wrong.
Which happens in Empire Strikes Back.
There's a lot of failure in Empire Strikes Back. I mean, they lose at Hoth. Luke loses his hand and also fails in his attempt to kill Vader. They fail to... What else happens in 5?
Han gets, frozen in carbonite.
Han gets frozen. Luke basically fails his training and leaves without finishing it.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's all these things of failure that are in 8 as well. And I think that, what was my line that I texted you earlier? Oh, in the face of so much concentrated failure, I think a lot of fans of this movie are kind of set aback, because basically everyone fails in this movie, bad guys and good guys alike.
And there's not a lot of failure in the prequels.
No.
There really isn't. But those are a little bit different because we don't really have a happy ending in episode 3.
We have to have a bad ending in 3.
Yeah, because that leads into the original trilogy. But one thing that's been interesting that I learned, I didn't know this, because Empire Strikes Back is my favorite, Star Wars movie, and I found it interesting to learn that fans were also really divisive and torn, and just very divided about that movie.
And I'm pretty sure there's a director of 5 that left because of creative differences and didn't get credited. And so
we haven't looked to see for sure.
That's probably something.
But I believe that, but people were, upset because, that was the first movie where we had, the Force grab, and just, learning, that Luke was Vader's son, and just so many different things that happened in that movie that people were really upset about. And, but nowadays, people are more vocal because they have more platforms to get upset about it, and also more and more people watch Star Wars as well, and so I think that as people watch the Last Jedi, they're gonna be a lot more open to it,
And critics already know that it's good.
Yeah, it's the
So people that like watch movies and create movies,
it's
know that this is a
93% fresh rating on IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes,
which is the highest rating for any of the Star Wars movies.
But the audience score is 56%, so basically half the people like it, half the people hate it. Like, it's basically like a civil war almost, like, amongst fans.
Star Wars Civil War.
Yeah. But it's been, like, it's interesting because for me at least, most of the fans that I talk to online have been, received it really, really well. They've loved it. Most everybody I talk to has been going to see it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And just digesting and really diving in and finding the little things that you didn't see before. When we went to go see it again on Saturday, we had our daughter in the seat between us, and we kept looking at each other like, oh my gosh, did you notice that? Like, the first time that Kylo and Rey force timed, Kylo's like, the first time that Kylo and Rey force timed, he was like, you're not really here because the effort would kill you. And then later on, that's what happened with Luke, is he projected himself to where the First Order and the Resistance was, and, he faced Kylo. And we found later that he had been, projecting himself, and that it did.
Which there isn't a whole lot of precedence for, but maybe it's just like something that you learn in the Force that you just don't want to do because it would kill you.
Yeah,
so,
and
one thing that is objectively disappointing is the lack of information about Snoke. So it's like if Emperor Palpatine was killed off in Episode 5, and you didn't get all the prequels to explain where he came from, that's kind of how people feel about Snoke. Is like, like
he killed off.
I don't know.
6.
I know, but
but
if that were to happen,
but we still didn't even really know who he was in Episode 6 when he died.
So he's just this mysterious force that comes from nowhere that is an oogie boogie man, and
basically,
yeah.
But
so maybe there's like extra movies or in between movies or something that will get more stories or books.
Yeah.
But that is frustrating just from the movie standpoint.
And there were some other things that were frustrating, like just some side stories that just like I feel like they were still essential, but they were also kind of, you could get rid of them and still have a movie that was good. Like the side mission to Canto Bight, and then to sneak onto the First Order ship, like it just kind of, it failed.
I think that, well, thinking back, like, about the storyline and everything, if Poe had just trusted the plan that he was not told about, they wouldn't have actually shot down the little ships. Because the only way that the Empire knew about the little ships and the cloaking was from the hacker guy. Yeah.
Well, and also, too, though, remember that, Finn was ready to, just, like, jump ship again. Because that's what he does when things get hard, is he just leaves sometimes. And, but I think that by having this side mission and talking to DJ, the code breaker, and realizing what happens when you don't choose sides, and how people really can get hurt, because the codebreaker is the one who, betrayed him and told him about the ships leaving, and sneaking off to the planet. That cost a lot of lives, and I think that Poe realized that I do need to choose a side, and that's what he did.
Well, definitely DJ, the hacker guy, is kind of the embodiment of the gray side of the Force, if that's even a thing. Being that
he's not in balance.
There is no guy, or there is no true light side or dark side, because everything's a machine. I don't know what good Finn kind of takes away from that, other than he's just kind of a slime ball.
Well, he's definitely not in balance, though. He just only serves himself, which, in a way, is very much a dark side, you know, thing to have, to be. So, because that's all he does, is he's just business, cares about himself, so he's definitely more of a dark side.
Well, if you didn't have, like, the weapons sellers that are making weapons to sell to the good guys, they wouldn't have anything to defend themselves with.
Oh, I know. Yeah, but it's still, that's unfortunate thing, though, is they need to bring balance so that they don't have those issues with the...
Right. If they didn't have... If everything was in balance, you wouldn't have the resistance having to battle against tyranny.
Well...
And there wouldn't be a need for weapons.
Yeah. There wouldn't be the way for them to make money.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's it. We could keep going on, but we're not going to, because that's a really long video.
It already has been a long video up to this point.
Because we could talk about it for a long time. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you didn't get bored. And if you have any questions or anything that you'd like us to talk about, whether that's like with Star Wars or anything else, but hopefully Star Wars, just let us know.
We have other interests other than Star Wars.
I know, but Star Wars is life right now, so.
Right.
Please comment below or like, and then you can subscribe to us if you find us awesome, like his dorky face, which I love so much. Anyways.
A fuzzy face.
Yep. Okay, bye.